So we begin a new series today, but today is actually the preview of that series. Have you ever been to the movies early enough to see the previews? So back in the day, previews began before the time that the movie actually started. So if you showed up early, you could see the previews of the coming attractions. But now, like, the previews start when the movie's supposed to start. So you're almost free to wait 15 minutes or so before the movie actually is going to begin. So today's a preview sermon of the series that is coming. I call this a soil preparation sermon. Soil preparation, where the ground is going to be turned over. It's the message before the message, but you can't leave. Now that you're here, now that you found out it's going to be a preview, all right? The Lord, I think, can speak into the midst of it. Coming to a pulpit near you, we're going to have marks of mature disciple all throughout September and October. That's going to be the series. And I want to begin it this way. I was challenged with a question this week as I was reading through this old blog from 2019, and the question was asked this way. Is it possible for someone to go to our church for 10 years, participate in everything the church has to offer, and not grow with Jesus? So as I read that this week, I was a little taken back, and I wanted to share it with you. Is it possible for someone to come to the church, participate in everything we have to offer for 10 years, and not grow with Jesus? I found this in a 2019 blog from March of 2019, and what the author didn't know was what was coming in March of 2020. In fact, everything that I read, that is written pre-COVID, you always in the back of my mind say, I wonder if they still believe that, right? I wonder if they would say it differently. We learned in 2020 that yes, not only is it possible for someone to come to church for 10 years, participate in the life of the church, and not grow in Jesus, but that's actually what happened. That's actually what resulted. It was the state of the church at the time. Now, those of us in leadership in 2020 in the church, as numbers dropped off, which was inevitable for that period as things shut down, here's what we discovered. We discovered that our people, the people of our churches, who had attended for 10 years plus years, they had been discipled into attending a service rather than following Jesus. So when we took away the service, people struggled to know what it actually meant to be a follower of Jesus in everyday life. Many people. Not everybody, but many people. And we discovered not only is it possible for this to happen, it is actually what happened, despite for many churches 150 years of services. People coming together and singing songs and listening to a message. We had a massive system failure of discipleship. Like a system meltdown, if you will. A structural failure. You see, the foundation that we had laid and relied upon, namely Sunday morning worship with, what at that time for many churches would have been, hymns or seating in pews, and for some churches had transitioned to a little more dramatic. I'm not saying good or bad, but a little more dramatic with lights, and I know I'm describing us, and loud music and bands. And what we had learned was after all of that, it didn't work to produce passionate, obedient disciples. Hundreds of years of us doing these things. Instead, it had produced attenders, but not those who were attending to the Lord. So today, as numbers across the United States, quote unquote, return to pre-pandemic levels, that's what we're hearing today. Like I, for one, I don't want to miss what God taught us in the system failure. in the shutdown period. I don't want to miss what God was teaching us. And as a church, we are committed to disciple people to obedient reliance in Jesus in their everyday lives, not to come to a holy place on a holy day to hear a holy person speak some holy words. If you coming to hear me is the height of your discipleship, God help us. I hope I'm one of the tools in the Lord's tool belt to help you grow closer to the Lord, but let's not mistake attendance for discipleship, okay? And I want to tell you, the pull to going back to how we used to do things is strong. Like an undertow in the ocean, well-meaning believers, many of us in this room, we don't fully understand why we can't just do things how we used to do them when it worked for some of us, at least a few of us. But I want you to hear me say clearly, and leaders in the room, Christian leaders who were in charge of churches and other ministries, you know this. Our system that rewarded attendance, not transformation, didn't work. It didn't work. And it still doesn't. And it's not new, this struggle that God's people can attend to the things of God and not be changed. That's not new. That's as old as the church and as old as Israel is. Consider these words in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Paul is reflecting on how the Israelites missed God amid the miracles. They saw them. They attended to the things of God. And speaking to the Corinthians, a group who loved to appear spiritual, and they loved attending services where there was tongues that were spoken and prophecies that were given. They loved all of that. And Paul finally wrote in 1 Corinthians 13, you missed the whole point if you haven't been transformed in love. You're just a clanging gong, just clanging away. So Paul writes this in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. I don't want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors were all under the cloud and that they all passed through the sea. They all experienced the things of God. They attended them. They were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. They all ate the same spiritual food. They drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them, and that rock was Christ. Nevertheless, God was not pleased with how many? Most of them. That's a little chilling. Their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. Now, these things occurred as examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things as they did. These things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the culmination of the ages has come. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. So Paul is telling us that these men and women, they experienced the things of God. The cloud, the sea, the manna, the baptism, the water, and yet it didn't reach their hearts. They had attended but not been transformed. So Paul calls God's people to something better, deeper, and greater. Be careful in your walk with God. So what does it mean that we're going to be careful in our walk with God? What does it mean for us here at the Arbor? What are we asking as a church of the people who call the Arbor their home? We're asking more than just showing up. We are. It's nice when we have a huge crowd. It helps me sleep better on a Sunday afternoon. Unless Michigan lost. But it's more than that. It's more than attendance. What is the target on the wall for us? What are the marks of mature and maturing disciple? What would actually help you grow in the Lord? Listen, a few years ago, a group of people in our church that were lay people as well as some of our pastors, they gathered together and they prayed and worked through what our mission vision statement is, what our values are, what it is that we're asking of people in order to grow, and then what the marks of a mature disciple. And after praying and dreaming and talking and listening to the Lord, the mission statement was this: becoming rooted together in Jesus and bringing abundant life in our community. And our values, what is it that we actually trying to stand for and bring, even if we don't necessarily see it? That we are spirit-moved, truth-inspired, we're anchored in the Scripture, we are kingdom-minded, things are bigger than the church, we are joy-filled, and where everyone is valued. Now, I actually took this group of people through the church when I first came here, and all of these things are written on the walls if you didn't know. Like if you, some of you have been here for years and you didn't know there's stuff written on the wall. Like that, you know where the coffee is, right? But our vision, mission, values, all that's kind of written on the wall. And so I went through and I just asked them questions. Why did you choose this word? What is this? And the reason that I did this is because of this. In the years I have served as a pastor, I have landed at various places, and there's always a temptation for a new pastor to kind of change things. Listen, there just is, right? Like, to make things more of the flavor of things that I or the leader particularly likes. And there's some extent that happens, right? But I remember being younger and having new pastors come, new leaders come, and every time they came, they would change the vision and change the mission. And they never answered the question, did God change his mind? Like, we were here when you weren't, and he seemed to say this, and now you're here and he's saying something different. And it always bothered me. So when I landed, I took by faith that God had spoken to that small group of people. Like, I'm not going to tell you what it is. There's things I don't like about our statements. I'm not going to tell you what are. They're amazing. Good job. But I believe God spoke. And so we're going to rely upon that God spoke to that group of people in the direction that the church were going. In fact, I asked them, why did you choose joy-filled as a value rather than hope-filled or love-filled? And this is what they said in that small group. Some of you were there. You remember walking around. One of you said, we picked joy-filled because there was no joy here. And some of you who are new, you don't know that we walked through a really difficult period where people came to gather as the body out of discipline rather than desire. And we want to see joy fill this place. How do we grow? We meet together in small groups and larger gatherings. We grow closer to the Lord individually and in groups, and then we serve. We go out, we serve here, local and globally, and then we go into the world. These are our missions, our values, our growth plan. It's plastered all over the wall. So we added 7 new posters this week. Did anybody notice? Yeah. They're in a straight line. Like Carlos does such a good job. If I put them up, they would be all crooked, and you'd be like, who put that up? These are our marks of a maturing disciple. You see, a crucial part of envisioning and discerning the process for our church is the question, what are the attributes of a disciple that we're actually trying to make? Like, what is the portrait of the picture of a mature and maturing disciple? What does an Arbor disciple look like? And you're not discipled into the Arbor, but what is it we're trying to disciple people towards Jesus? Let me ask another way. What fruit are we attempting to grow here at the Arbor? If you attend, and you attend to the things that we're trying to do and attend to the Lord, what will be the difference in your life? What fruit are we trying to produce? Listen, Jesus was like radically fruit-focused. In fact, more so than many of us are comfortable with. Listen to this in Matthew chapter 7. By their fruit you'll recognize them. Not by their attendance, not by their intention, not by how they hope they come across. By their fruit you'll recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit you will recognize them. Not everybody who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. And so Jesus was remarkably fruit-focused, more so than we're comfortable with. And listen, in a world where you can find a news source that agrees with you, a social media group that will help you feel as if you are the in crowd, and all kinds of people that would agree with your preconceived notions, here Jesus says, if you don't have the fruit, it doesn't matter. If the fruit's not there, it doesn't matter. Now, hear the grace of the Lord in this, because this is not about achievement and it's not about earning your salvation. But when the Holy Spirit plants the seeds of the gospel in your life, it will grow if the soil is right. And you get to decide what kind of soil you are. Go to church your whole life, throw up my hands and praise you again and again, and not grow in love, and listen, you missed it. You missed it. Where's the fruit? So over the next 8 weeks, we're going to place a target on the wall. In fact, I wanted this just to look somewhat like a target with 7 characteristics of a mature disciple. This is what we're trying to do. Let me say it this way. Have you ever been talking to someone and you can automatically know where they're from by their accent? Like in southern Indiana, where I served for so many years, there's this deep southern Indiana accent. Chat with my daughter Jackie afterward, you can hear it. Like she was raised there. Sorry, Jackie. Like you hear it. There's a Michigan nasal. I have it. I down in Indiana, people are like, you're from Michigan, aren't you? Yeah, I am from Michigan. I speak through my nose, right? You didn't know you have it, but we have a Michigan nasal. You ever been to Boston? It's thick, and park the car, right? So is it possible that you would see these 7 attributes in the life of a disciple and someone would go, hey, did you attend the Arbor? Like, that's how important I want this to be. You must be a follower of Jesus. I hear that accent in you. Things like investing, maturing disciples, that's the Bible. Invest daily in the scriptures, praying. Mature disciples pray to God both alone and with others, following. Mature disciples follow God into greater freedom. We don't settle for bondage. We don't settle for bondage or bitterness. There's freedom that can come. Sharing. Maturing disciples share their God story, point people to Jesus. We serve. What do we get back when we serve? Nothing. We serve. We celebrate, gathering together, and individually we celebrate the Lord in joy, and we give. Mature disciples give to God and others, even where it disturbs our comfort. These are the accents that disciples at Arbor speak. These are our marks, and you're going to hear about them over the next couple of weeks, and I don't have time to talk about all of them today, but I want to say this. If you are leading a small group or a class, or you're discipling people as a part of our church and connected to it, I really want you to pay attention. Because I want each of these to somehow come up at some point in your lessons and your talks and your conversations. These 7. This was determined through prayer by a small group of leaders within our church, and we're presenting it to you to say, this is what we're trying to say. So that's the groundwork today. That's all introduction. I need to do some soil work today. And I want to prepare you for what's coming in the next few weeks by turning over some soil in preparation to hear what I believe the Lord is saying to us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge 3 assumptions that that I think we have, not only in our church, but particularly in the Western church. And so just so you know, this is a challenge sermon. Like, I'll try to make you feel good, but like at the end, you're going to feel challenged, all right? These three things, if you don't deal with them, you'll attend church and not be changed. The first assumption that we need to challenge is this: the belief that more knowledge equals more growth. More knowledge equals more growth. The Apostle Paul took this on, just head on, this assumption in 1 Corinthians to a church who loved to gain knowledge. They picked up the latest book, they listened to the latest podcast, they just kept learning, so to speak, but knowledge doesn't necessarily lead to growth. In fact, it can get in the way of growth at times. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, right away, Paul says this: the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those of us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs. Greeks, that we've been really influenced by that culture, we look for knowledge or wisdom. We preach Christ crucified instead, a stumbling block to Jews, foolishness to Gentiles, but to those of us whom God has called Jews and Greeks, he is Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. He's changed our lives. Later on in Corinthians, Paul drives home the point when he says this in chapter 8: knowledge actually puffs up, love builds up. Those who think they know something do not yet know as they ought to know. I like to think I know stuff. And Paul says, that can get in the way of you growing in Christ. Instead, whoever loves God is known by God. You see, in the church, we often assume that more knowledge equals greater growth. That one more book study, one more discussion, one more exchange of ideas will lead to greater obedience. Now, I need to say this. I know what town I'm serving in. I know there's a university near here. And I probably should tread a little lightly when I say that an exchange of ideas doesn't change you. It can. And I'm not downing education. But listen, something happens in discipleship when it becomes idea-focused rather than obedience-focused. Small groups of people who gather together to discuss ideas rather than to discuss the state of their souls won't grow. There's a world of difference between gathering together in a class or a small group and studying the 10 theories of the atonement of Jesus. Did you know there's 10? I hope you know them. Studying the 10 theories of the atonement versus a group of Christians gathering together and saying, what must I do to be saved? Don't hear me wrong. I do hope you explore the 10 different theories of atonement. It can shape who you think Christ actually is. But consider the difference between two opening sentences in a small group or Sunday school, where one group gathers together and asks, did you read the material this week? And the other group gathers together and says, did you sin this week? Where one group gathers together and says, did you do all the reading? And the other group gathers together and says, is there anything in our lives that we need to set aside the lesson so that we can deal with this week? Do you hear the difference? May our knowledge never outpace our obedience. Assumption 1, more knowledge doesn't equal growth. Obedience equals growth. Love equals growth. Spiritual experiences often puff us up. Love and obedience make us real. Second assumption. I told you I was going to challenge you. Y'all all right? Do we need a break? Like, there's snacks in the There's not snacks, but let's all go to the lobby. That aged me right there. Second assumption. It's similar, but it has more to do with how we learn. The second assumption that needs overturned for us to plant the right seed is this, that learning is best done in the classroom or in the sanctuary. So where do I serve? In a university town, right? This feels like the last sermon before I get fired, right? So I am going to tread lightly, but listen, we have to talk about the assumption because it's stunting our educational growth. It really is. You see, in the West, primarily in the West, though you see this in Japan and you see some of it happening in China now, learning has been reduced to lecture. I get the irony that I'm lecturing right now, right? I get the irony that I'm preaching a sermon and no one else gets to talk, right? I just trust that I know the irony. But education has been reduced to memorization and test taking. And all of us in the room know, particularly you students, you know just how to get enough information to get that grade without having it turned into knowledge. You've learned the game, and if you didn't learn the game yet, learn it now, because it's a game. When you compare how we learn, quote unquote learn, in our culture, to compare it to how Jesus actually taught, it's night and day. It is night and day. You see, Jesus did lecture, yes. He taught, yes. He preached, yes. He explained his lessons to a smaller audience, but his lessons were never disconnected from their everyday life. In fact, many of the lessons that came up came because they saw something or asked them a question about their everyday life. In fact, it was never disconnected from practice. They never learned something that they didn't then just go practice. And often they learned by the very practice. Consider how Jesus taught the 72 when he sent them out to do ministry. Listen, as a disciple, they literally followed Jesus, and the dust from his feet got in their eyes, and it got in their clothes. They didn't have to make it an idea about following Jesus. They knew they were following him by, am I following him or not? Right? We have to make it into an idea. But we need to really drive home the reality that discipleship is a dusty, dirty, follow Jesus every day kind of a thing. When Jesus sent out the 72, listen to how he prepares these 72 for what's to come. This is what he says. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others, and he sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. And he told them, the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. What is needed? Workers, not learners. Don't get me wrong, learners are needed too, right? As long as we're working. Go! Exclamation point. Well, what's the Greek word for go? No, who cares? Go! Right? Do you see how easy it is to get off track? Go, I'm sending you out like lambs among wolves. Don't take a purse or a bag or a sandal, and do not greet anyone on the road. By the way, verse 4, don't greet anybody on the road, is the favorite verse of introverts. So write it down. We are not supposed to greet people. Aren't you biblical? Right? Stop saying hello to me. We're supposed to just pass each other with a head nod. Right? Did you catch how the disciples were learning what Jesus wanted them to learn? He taught them to serve and evangelize by doing it. Now, he talked to them and explained to them and helped them and gave them power, but he taught by doing and taught them by doing, not by writing down. If I did this today, most of you would not come back next week. It's how ingrained this is into our lives. I mean, just consider. I know I've done this before, but just consider this. I want to teach you how to reach people. How to reach people in their needs and their brokenness, and how to love people who are far from God. You want to learn that? All right. So I got a bunch of buses, and they're in the back of the church. And we're all going to go into Jackson today. We're going to go into Jackson, so leave your purse, leave your wallet in the seat, because you're not going to need money there. I mean, we'll take care of it. You got to trust us. No one seems to be moving and leaving their wallet. We're going to go get on the buses. We're going to go into Jackson. Well, what are we going to do, Pastor? Well, I don't know. But doesn't that seem, as if you haven't planned ahead? No, that's what Jesus told us to do. Like, go without an agenda or a syllabus, so to speak. Well, when are we going to come back? I don't know. So just text your boss right now and say, we may be gone for a couple of days, and I'll come back later on, and then you're just going to leave your phones. All right, I lost most of you at that point. You're going to leave your phones, because that's how you pay for stuff and how you communicate and how you connect and what you rely upon. And we're going to go get in the buses, and we're going to go into Jackson, and you're just going to love people, and you're going to just talk to people. And did you get us reservations where we're going to stay and eat? No. Isn't that irresponsible? No, that's Jesus. That's what he did. Do you feel the tension? I wouldn't sign up for that. Like, it's not how we think we learn, but it is how Jesus taught. There's a disconnect between how we learn and how Jesus taught. And we can't turn back the time and somehow go back and live in that first century, but we can make our learning radically practice-focused and try stuff out. And I know this pushes against some of your all's how you're wired. I'll never forget, I took a bunch of youth out to Colorado several years ago, and we had agenda, we had some things we were working on, and I took one of our sponsors with us, and God bless her, she really struggled because she kept asking me for a daily agenda. Like, when are we leaving? What time is it? What's happening next? And I finally said to her, listen, that's not this trip. These are teenagers. There's some order, but we're going to go where we are generally planning, right? And it really, she struggled. Like, it was against how she was built, because there's this disconnect between how we actually learn and what we think we can control. We tend, hear me, this is going to hurt, we tend to want control of what we're going to learn, rather than reception and practice. The second assumption that needs overturned is that learning takes best place in pews or the classroom. No, learning takes best place in life. What is Jesus going to teach you today at home with your neighbor? That's where it matters. The final assumption that I want to overturn today is this: that we can live on yesterday's manna or tomorrow's recipe. That we can live on yesterday's manna or tomorrow's recipe. Now, that is very churchy language. If you're visiting and you've never really been a part of church, the people of God in Israel were fed manna, bread from heaven, and they were given this specific instruction: you don't get to save any. You don't get to save any tomorrow in a sense of control of what God will take care of then. You have to trust Him today. You don't get to write a recipe for what's going to happen tomorrow. You actually have to trust Him today. You don't get to worry about tomorrow. You don't get to fret about yesterday. This spiritual lesson was the daily sufficiency of God's provision today. And I daily need reminded of this. Jesus taught us to pray, give us this day our daily bread. Spiritually speaking, you're not an expert in the faith today because you were yesterday. You are exercising faith today. The Hebrew writer instructed us to be radically today focused. Like God, I believe God is so today focused that He often kind of wants to put the bumpers up like you would at a bowling alley, right? Just to say, focus on today. Are you listening? Are you doing? The Hebrew writer says, "See to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. Instead, encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today." That's supposed to be funny. Like, it's a play on words. Is today today? Yes, then do it today. Do you do it tomorrow? No, today's today. So that none of you may have a hardened heart by sin's deceitfulness. Today, we have come to share in Christ if indeed we hold our original conviction firmly to the end. As has just been said, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as you did in the rebellion. Today, hear his voice. Tomorrow may never come. We like to say that, but it is a reality. My intention to follow God tomorrow as a recipe, I may never get to make that cake. It may never be here. What I intend to do tomorrow does not benefit me today. Intention is not action. Intention is not growth. Intention can feel like growth without the work. James says it this way in James 4. Now listen to you who say today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why? You don't even know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while, then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, I'll go and do this and do that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do today and doesn't do it, it's sin for them. This means that the journey is more important than the destination. We're to live fully today. Today is what matters. The windows of our heart are either open today or they're closing today. The door is either opening today or it's closing today. This is what the Father asks of us. Exercise and trust of him today. Enjoyment of him today. Facing of what comes today. He's radically today focused. I bring up all of these assumptions to be overturned, particularly for those of us that have walked with the Lord for a while. We think we know, but our assumptions about knowing is what's stinting us and causing us. You've never lived this day before. You've never been this age. You never have. Are you obedient to the Lord today? And for those of you who are new to the faith, how easy it is to put off obedience till tomorrow. No, tomorrow may not come. Do you want to be a better prayer? Pray today. Get in the Word today. Don't put off obedience for tomorrow. Today is the day to follow the Lord. So these three assumptions, I hope you felt the turning over of the ground of our heart. Before we talk about reading the Bible and prayer and serving, we're going to go into a time of communion today. Let me just summarize it this way. We assume knowledge equals growth. That's not true. Obedience equals growth. We assume that learning is best done in the classroom or pews. No, learning is best done in a daily walk with Jesus. We assume that I can live on yesterday's manna or on tomorrow's recipe. No, today is the day to fully engage with the Lord.